Travel is expensive, and time off, that's precious. So when we do get a chance to take a little bit of time off, save up some money, and step out of our day-to-day lives, we want it to be the absolute best it can be, right? I mean, I sure do. But there's a lot of challenge and certainly a huge heaping side of pressure that can sometimes come with that. I mean, especially in today's day and age, with all the cinematic, like dreamy vacation experiences that are sometimes shared online, we can often find ourselves trying to chase someone else's idea of the perfect vacation. And that just, it's never a good situation to be in, because when you're chasing someone else's vision, you find yourself frustrated because you can't necessarily achieve that, exhausted because it's a lot of work. But more than that, it's like there's this feeling that you sometimes get when you get back home and you've settled back in, that you've missed something. It's like this hole in the pit of your stomach, and you're just like, ugh, that was not fulfilling. And of course, with money being tight for so many people, time being tight for so many people, you don't want to feel like that when you travel. And you shouldn't have to. You should be able to go places, do things, and check things off a list. But the challenge is, whose list are we checking things off of? Like I mentioned, all too often it's someone else's. But in 2025, we're changing things up. We're coming to the table with a different mindset. We're trying to do things a little bit better. And one of the ways that we can do that, and we're going to work on it together, is defining what vacation means to us, so that we're chasing our wants and needs, the things that are going to have us feeling fulfilled, and not the things that other people say we want or need. It's a lot of work. It's definitely a little bit tedious, but I think that it's something that we can do. And I think that we can do it if we work together on this. And the truth of the matter is, I have found myself in many positions over the years that you might be in right now, where you're like, I want to see everything, I want to do everything, but there are limitations, and I have maybe felt not great once returning home, and I want to fix that because I want to keep going and I want to just feel more fulfilled. I've been there too, So I'm going to share with you today some of the things that I have done over the years to try and prevent that from happening, some of the things that I've done to define what vacationing and what traveling means to me, and then hopefully that can get the gears turning for you, and moving forward, we can have better trips, right? Because that's what we all want. We want to have a better time. So today we're here at Disney Springs. I'm actually just parked right this second, but we are going to go in. I'm going to run through some of these things with you. Okay. And yeah, some of them we're just going to breeze over, but I want to get the conversation started. Like I said, get you thinking, and hopefully we can make steps in the right direction. So what do you say? Ready to head in there? All right, let's go. Now, there are, of course, a lot of different ways that we could start today's discussion, but my goal is to try and break this all down into sections and help you build a framework for defining what vacation looks like to you. And part one, the first thing that I want to cover, well, I suppose I should start by addressing the elephant in the room. Yes, we still have holiday cheer here at Disney Springs. As of recording this, we've got trees, we've got decor, we've got music. So I know this is like too much at this point. For some of you, it's too much for me, but bear with me, okay? Anyway, the first thing that I want to talk about is figuring out what the wants and needs of your family or your traveling party, or honestly, even you, if you're a solo traveler, figuring out what your wants and especially your needs are. Now, chances are, if you've hung out with me for any vacation planning discussions in the past, you may have heard me talk about something like this, taking a second, really looking at your family, looking at yourself, and assessing the good, the bad, and the ugly, which is always rough, right? Because no one wants to really look at the not so great things about their families or their friends or themselves. But taking a second to do this is really important, especially when we're traveling, because something that people don't necessarily want to admit, but just because we don't admit it doesn't mean it's not true, is that even when we're stepping out of our day-to-day lives, the people we're traveling with, including ourselves, we're the same people we were when we were back home. So if something stresses us out, makes us tick, we're uncomfortable with certain situations, or we don't like certain things, maybe we get overwhelmed by certain types of places, that doesn't get left behind at home. That comes with us. And so we have to recognize that, and we absolutely have to accommodate for it. We also have to recognize that whether or not we actually make accommodations for those wants and needs, you know, whether they're our family's wants and needs or our own, we are going to ultimately be accommodating them at the end of the day. So we can plan for it, or we can try and figure out how to do that once we get where we're going. Now, I personally think that the best route is to plan accordingly ahead of time, because that way, not only do you have less stress, because you won't have to figure this out once you're in an unfamiliar environment, but the people you're going to be with are going to have that much less stress knowing that their needs are going to be met, and that extends beyond them too, to the rest of your traveling party. So I really do think that that's the best route, and it really does change everything. But in order to accommodate for those wants and needs, again, we have to be honest with ourselves. I know we want our families to be the glowing, picture-perfect families that we imagine, or, you know, the ones that show up in our perfectly staged family photographs, but we need to plan for the people that they are day to day, whatever it is that that looks like. So that really is the first step. And it's such an important building block to have in our foundation when we're planning a trip. And honestly, it's something that we should be thinking about before we settle on things like where we're going or when we're traveling. Because figuring out what our family's wants and needs are, what the wants and needs of our traveling party are, they'll help us make all of those decisions moving forward. So that's step one. That's the most important thing to do. Take an honest look at the people you're going to be traveling with, including yourself, and do what you need to do in order to accommodate for those wants and needs. Because again, you're going to accommodate for them one way or another. I know I'm repeating myself, but literally it is so important. So, all right, moving on to the next thing. Part 2 of our discussion today, we need to talk about figuring out what your ideal vacation looks like. Of course, keeping in mind all of the wants and needs of the people that you're going to be traveling with. So join me for a very short exercise. Okay, I want you to take a second, close your eyes, and think to yourself, what does that vacation look like? How do I feel while I'm on that vacation? You know, like, am I relaxed and chill? Do I want to be sitting on a balcony sipping a coffee, reading a book? Or is it like a constant state of go, 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 go? Do I want to try and see everything and do everything? And when I get home, like, I just collapse of exhaustion. And you know, speaking of what it's like when you get back home, I want you to think about like what you want to feel once you get back home. Like, do you want to feel refreshed and ready to take on the next stretch of time before you can take time off again? Or do you want to feel like, whew, thank goodness we're done, because now I can take a breath doing my daily grind? That's a really important thing to keep in mind, because it's going to help you figure out the pace of your vacation, which is super important, especially when it comes to returning home feeling fulfilled. It's also super important to keep the pace of your vacation in mind, because if you're not taking on your vacation at the right pace and you realize that you're like way in over your head, gasping for air mid-vacation, it can be really hard to correct. It's not impossible. There are things you can do to get on the right track, but it's not super easy. So you really want to set yourself up for success by not taking on your vacation at a pace that isn't sustainable for you and your family, or, you know, the people you're traveling with. Again, I say family a lot, but you know, you travel sometimes with friends. Also, sometimes you're traveling by yourself, and it's still just as important for solo travelers as it is for everyone else. So, figuring out that pace, figuring out what you want out of your vacation, that's the next thing that should be on our list of things to do when defining what vacation means to us. Moving on, the next thing I want you to keep in mind now that we're starting to build that foundation that is the definition of vacation to us, is that compromise is key. Now, I know that this probably seems like it goes without saying. There are a lot of things today that probably seem like they could go without saying, but you know, everyone needs a reminder every now and again. So that's why we're here. But yes, compromise, it's gonna happen one way or another when you're traveling. Whether you plan on compromising, you know, and you bake that into your travel plans, or if you're having to make those compromises on the fly. One way or another, compromise. It's part of planning a vacation. It's part of vacationing, which, by the way, is especially true, especially if we're talking about a place like Walt Disney World or a family vacation, if we're traveling with kids, particularly if we're traveling with kids for the first time. I know we all want to be able to do the same things that we did before we had kids, but the truth of the matter is while we still can do those things, it doesn't necessarily look the same as it may have before. So take an honest look at what we're doing, take an honest look at our kids, and do what we need to make those compromises ahead of time so it doesn't feel like a compromise. All right, we've made our way back out to the Jeep for part number 4 because it is wild in there. Like, people are all over the place. I mean, makes sense, right? It's still technically the holiday season. Nonetheless, I wanted to sit and talk a little bit about this next part before we make our way home. We'll wrap things up over there. Anyway, like I said, part number 4 is not using other people's vacations to define our own. Now, this is a tough one, right? Because of course, you're here, maybe you're hearing what I have to say about where I go and what I do. You probably watch other people as well. And even if you're not going to social media or YouTube or whatever to find information about traveling and where you should go and what you should do, chances are you're talking to people who have vacation experiences, maybe friends or family, and they're sharing those experiences with you, and it can be easy to blur the line between using those as a tool and using those as a blueprint. And that's really what we want to do. We want to define both of those as separate things. See, using people's experiences, what they have to say to you, and all that stuff that you go back and forth about when you're talking to people about where they go, using that as a guide, using it as a tool is a-okay. It's honestly one of the reasons that I do what I do. I've always loved sharing my experiences with people because I truly believe that the more information we have about the experiences that people have, the more likely we are to be able to pull that information together and ultimately make a better trip for us. Learn from the mistakes of others and share our mistakes so that other people can learn, and everyone works together to have a better overall experience. But using all of that info as a tool is very different from using it as a blueprint where you're taking someone's experience and following it to a T. Because here's the reality of the situation, right? Everyone's experience is going to be a little bit different. Everyone's family dynamic is going to be a little bit different. And more than all of that together, everyone's retelling of their vacation is going to be a little bit skewed. Just like we were mentioning earlier, how everyone wants to see their family in the best light, so sometimes they gloss over the not so great characteristics about their family or the people they're traveling with. People do the same exact thing when it comes to sharing information about their vacations. They want to tell you it was the best time of their lives and not that they argued with their husband the whole time because of X, Y, and Z. Or they want to tell you that their kids had the most memorable vacation ever. They don't want to tell you that this one was unhappy the whole time and that one was cranky the whole time. They're building a story that more often than not glosses over things so that they can communicate to you, for whatever reason, an experience that leans positive. And this is not only something that will happen with, friends and family who talk about their vacations. This happens in the space that we're in too, social media content creators as well. And this happens for a number of different reasons in a number of different ways. For example, there are some content creators who they gloss over some of the negatives, only talking about the most positive things that they see and do. In many ways, they could kind of be described as advertisers working for the businesses with the businesses, building those relationships so they can continue to work together. On the other hand, there are content creators, I fall into this category, who are here for you guys. We're here to try and share the good, the bad, and the ugly so that you know how to do whatever it is that you want to do in the best way possible that works for you. And look, before we go any further, I just want to make something perfectly clear, okay? There's nothing wrong with either type of content or either type of content creator, right? Every single person takes a different route to get wherever it is that they're aiming to go. So some people might choose to go that direction, some people might choose to go this direction. It's all good either way, right? But we do need to acknowledge that both sides of this coin exist, especially when we're in a position that you might be in trying to define vacation and travel for themselves. It's not helpful to ignore that these two types of content are out there, because when we do, we set ourselves up for failure. Maybe looking at this family of 5 who did Disney in one day as an example, and they did everything and everyone was happy and cheery, but it's like, okay, but that was a TikTok and it was 30 seconds long. What happened for the other, 16 hours of that day, you know? And look, I'll be the first person to tell you that it is so incredibly easy to be misled by the stories that others are telling you. You know, whether it's a content creator, whether it's a family member or a friend, if you're hearing a story, it is so easy to get sucked into how good everything went, how wonderful it was, because that's what we want. We want everything to go 100% perfect. We want everything to be flawless. But we need to remember that that's not the way that the world works. Sometimes you're lucky, but in the off chance that you're not, you need to be prepared. And of course, that's part of this greater discussion, but the gist of part 4, okay, to sum it all up, is consume all the content, hear all the stories, hear what everyone has to say. But again, use those as tools to help you figure out what you want to do, not as blueprints to figure out what you need to do. Very different thing there. We can also expand a little bit more about that in the future. So if you want a little bit more guidance, or if you want us to go a little bit deeper into that particular topic, let us know in a comment down below. But for now, I think we're gonna head home and then we'll wrap things up over there. Hope that sounds good. The top's off and it's a beautiful day, so it should be a lovely drive. All right, so back home. Got ourselves a nice cold drink, hanging out on the balcony. Let's talk about part 5. This is going to be the final part of today's discussion, and that is the power of practice. Now look, we've covered a lot today, right? We talked about understanding wants and needs, realizing that there's going to be compromise, and sorting through all the noise of what we might see on social media, among other things, right? But here's the thing. Even once you started to get all of that squared away and figured out, the only way that you can really know what is going to work for your family is putting it to the test. And I know this sounds super tedious, it sounds super expensive, but I'm going to tell you, it doesn't have to be. Because look, when I say that you should plan practice trips, I'm not talking about weekends away or day trips or anything like that. I'm not talking about going far and wide, although that is great. That's a great way to do it if you have the means to do just that. But what I'm talking about is much more manageable. It's about applying some of the stuff that we've talked about today to daily outings. Things like trips to the grocery store, or if you want to have a little bit more fun, do something a little bit different, maybe your local park or a playground. Taking a little bit of time to think about the things that we talked about today during your regularly scheduled errands, for example, is a great way to get started and get an idea of what it is that you need to do and apply to your longer vacations or more high stakes vacations. Because look, maybe things don't work out on your trip to the grocery store or to your local mall this weekend. But since they didn't work out, we can use that as a guide of what we need to do in the future and put it to the test again. And look, honestly, the sky's the limit with this, right? Because we can observe our family when we're waiting in line to check out at a grocery store and go, oh, okay, this is something that my toddler struggles with. So how can I manage this a little bit better if we're going to be going to a theme park, let's say, or to the airport? Maybe we have some other family members or people who we're going to be traveling with that have needs that we're just not aware of until we do certain types of things together. So maybe we go for a walk and realize that grandma needs to sit down. You know, we just can't make it all the way around the lake. We need to take rests. These are all things that you can do. They won't take a ton of time out of your day or out of your day-to-day life. They also don't have to cost anything, but they can really be invaluable once you realize what they can do for you. And plus, taking some time out of your day to enjoy the family, good, bad, or otherwise, you never know what you might learn about them or what you might learn about you in those situations, you know? So anyway, my point is make sure that you're taking time to practice. Put a plan together, you know? Maybe you're planning on doing a really labor-intensive vacation. You're gonna be going to a lot of places, trying to stick to timelines. You're not sure how your family will be able to do that. Put a timeline together for a Saturday errand run. Yeah, it might be a little bit more stress than if you did that on your own during the week, but this is going to be a great way to see how everyone works together, see how long it takes you to do some of these things when it's a little bit busier or when you have the entire family coming with you. Maybe everything goes great. It's like smooth as butter. That's fantastic. Take note of what you did and think about how you can apply that to your vacation. Better yet, maybe everything doesn't go great, and you know exactly where the point of failure is so that you can make some adjustments, try again, and hopefully you'll be even more familiar with the process and what works for your family when you do travel. Like with everything else, practice makes perfect, and practice does take time, but you don't have to wait until you're on vacation to put things to the test. You can do it day to day, you don't have to spend any money, and you can learn a lot. And I mean, you know, I did say the sky's the limit, and I really do mean that. It doesn't just have to be the way you go about vacationing or what you do to manage yourself and the people around you. It can also be things like what type of bag you carry, you know, what are you going to put in that bag in what way that makes it easier to navigate when you're at the airport or traveling wherever it is that you're going. Taking some time to give your gear a test drive can be a great thing too. Now look, this is a topic, this practicing vacation thing. This is a topic that I want to really dig a little bit deeper into some other time. Today we're just scratching the surface, right? We just want to get the gears turning. But since I do want to revisit this and give you all of the information that you need to try and do this for yourself, I want you to put any questions you might have about doing this with your family in a comment down below, so we definitely know to touch on that when we talk about this again. But look, today we talked about 5 things. 5 things that I think you should take some time to think about, especially if you have a vacation in your future. 5 things that will hopefully help you figure out how to define what vacation means to you so you can set yourself up for a more fulfilling vacation, as opposed to trying to chase someone else's idea of the perfect trip. And no, I don't have all the answers because the answers are going to look different for each and every one of you. But like I said, the goal is to just get those gears turning, and I hope that we did that today. But of course, look, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. So if you have any thoughts or anything that you'd like to share with people just like you, put it in a comment down below. Like I said before, the more people share their experiences, the more experiences we have to draw from, more information we can put in the pool, and the better we can figure out how to do what it is that we want to do. So I look forward to seeing what you guys have to say, but for now, I'm off. Thanks so much for hanging out with me and visiting Disney Springs, and now sipping on this iced tea as we gear up for part 2 of our day. It's been great so far, and I'm sure that it's going to be a fantastic rest of the day for me, and I hope that it's fantastic for you too. But yeah, whatever you're up to, wherever you are, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.